right, welcome back to Close Up, everyone. I'm joined by Governor Chris Sununu right after his first budget address, but a lot of other things going on in Concord as well, not the least of which includes the debate over right to work. Now, we've seen this before, but we have a Republican majority now. It's already passed the Senate. You said you'll sign it if it makes it to your desk, but who knows what's going on in the House. So what's going on in the House?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask the Speaker, but look, we've been working with the House members. We know it's going to be a close vote. And again, I think it's just making people understand it's not just a union issue. It's really about the flexibility that the individual employees have. It's about sending a great message about being open for business. It's about sending a great message that we're committing on the agenda that a lot of us were elected to fulfill. The vast majority of people in the state want right to work to happen. That's just a reality. So if it hits my desk, then I'm happy to sign it, but we'll see what happens in the House.
It's worth asking, because people talk about this a lot, that, you know, the workforce here in New Hampshire, the problem isn't not enough jobs, it's not enough qualified people to fill those jobs. So, you know, if we get right to work and business considers moving here,
sure.
How do we make sure that there's people that can, you know...
Look, driving our economy forward, we have all this untapped potential. We're always a really solid economy. We have low unemployment, actually in some ways almost too low, because to your point, it really signifies a problem with a lack of workforce. But when you're talking about being open for business, driving more jobs, more businesses actually coming here, doing some of the things we talked about in the budget today, helping students with debt, or helping kids take that first step in the workforce with the scholarship program we talked about today. All these are pieces of the puzzle to drive a much stronger, much more vibrant economy. You add that onto the fact that we are a no income tax, no sales tax type state. We have all this opportunity. We have a great quality of life. We will become, if we can get these things done, we truly will become the economic driver for the rest of New England. There's no doubt about that. We have the opportunity to get back to where we were, being in a #1 position where we're always the first choice for businesses to come.
During your initial address, you said you were going to reach out to 100 businesses in the first 100 days. I won't, you know, make you account for that because I know you've been very busy. But when you're talking to these businesses, is that a question that they're asking? Where's New Hampshire headed when it comes to right to work?
Absolutely. Oh, I've talked to many businesses about that. Sitting on the chairs in the office, we've had very frank discussions about it. It isn't the only thing they ask about. They ask about a lot of different things: breaking down regulations, keeping taxes low. Where are we going to go as a state? Energy costs are huge. You know, we proposed 20% of the renewable energy fund to actually be directed to low-income families who often have to subsidize the high costs of renewable energy. So let's make sure that the low-income folks are getting the first breaks we can on energy costs. Let's help them out. So all these things really play into the puzzle when we're talking to these 100 businesses. And by the way, they're lined up at the door. I'll probably end up with 140 to 150 businesses in the first 100 days here. It's great. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of them already, but we have meetings set up from here to next year. Frankly, it's awesome.
You want to name names?
I can't.
When it comes to energy, though, are we talking enough about it? I mean, we saw what happened with the I can't remember the name of the company recently. They chose to expand, I think, in Arkansas and they cited the high cost of energy here in New Hampshire. Obviously, you're a supporter of Northern Pass, but is there a recognition that this is a problem that needs to be addressed?
I think there's a recognition. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of different steps that we have to take in terms of getting those energy prices down. So it's a recognition on it. One of the things I proposed today, this week, was to create a new department for economic development, a new business, basically a new department of business development, which is great, kind of a one-stop shop that can deal with a lot of these issues. We're talking about high healthcare costs, high energy costs, opening up gateways and pathways for workforce, all these different things. But this is something that we're talking about very seriously. It's going to take time. There's no doubt about it. Do we need more natural gas in the state? Sure we do, but we have to do it the right way. Do we need the 1,100 megawatts of clean, renewable power that Northern Pass can provide? Absolutely. That would be a home run. But all these things really come into playing into a bigger puzzle of finally getting our energy costs down.
Let's get back to education. Your nominee to run the State Department of Education, Frank Edelblut, your former political rival. The critique on him is he doesn't have a background in education, and perhaps some of his views are a little bit too conservative, if not a lot too conservative. Why do you think that he is the right choice in this day and time to run education?
You sit down with Frank Edelblut for 5 minutes and you realize there's almost no one else in the state that has the background and understanding of what is happening both within that department, the opportunities we have at the local level, the opportunities we talk about school choice. And you know, for a lot of folks, school choice isn't public school or not. School choice is also what are the choices and the pathways we can create within the public school system for our students. You know, promoting career schools. Can students maybe test out out of a subject that they're proficient in so they can spend more time on more career path and career-oriented classes. These are the type of innovations Frank Edelblut wants to put on the table, and that's exactly where 21st century education is going. If we do want to keep running education like it's 1975, we should just keep going down the path we are. But we have to get innovative about it. We have to get aggressive about exploring new ideas and doing it a little differently.
But when it comes to school choice, a lot of people are questioning the use of tax dollars, for private schools. So, I mean, how is that case made?
Well, again, school choice comes in a variety of different ways. Maybe you can provide an education savings account, let's say, where a parent can then say, well, I'd love to homeschool my child, but I don't have that ability. I'm stuck going to maybe a poorly or failing public school. Well, nobody should be stuck doing anything when it comes to their child's education. We have to provide flexibility. We have to provide ways for the dollars to follow the child. It's sensible, it's reasonable, and it's fair.
All right, another nominee that high-profile one's going to be coming up soon, Attorney General. Want to break any news on the show? Yeah.
No, we have our current Attorney General today, but we're exploring a lot of different departments in terms of commissioners and opportunities, bringing new folks in on boards. That's something that we try to talk to the people of the state about all the time. There's lots of opportunity for folks that are in the private sector, maybe sitting in their homes this morning, and saying they want to help out. They want to be on maybe the Board of Dietitians or the Board of Medicine, the Board of Education. We have boards all over that really take into account the expertise that we have out there, and I encourage folks to contact our office. We're building a portal now so people can easily access all this stuff online. It just hasn't been done before. We want to make it easy and accessible for folks so they can participate. And again, we're bringing in the best and the brightest new ideas to the table. So we're really making sure we're getting the best out of New Hampshire.
Yeah, we're just about out of time, and no question about it. I mean, you're always very enthusiastic and optimistic and full of energy.
I'm full of rainbows and unicorns, Josh.
So, how's it been in the first? It's lost on a lot of people that you didn't have the benefit of a Republican governor to kind of show you the ropes or give you some guidance when you came in there. I mean, their first Republican governor since 2002. You kind of had to learn your way as soon as you walked in. Was that difficult?
It wasn't difficult. I mean, it's any new job and understanding the background. But again, I was able to lean on folks like Senator Chuck Morse and Speaker Jasper and some of the folks who have worked on the legislative side of things. Governor Hassan's transition team was helpful. I don't want to say they weren't. They were helpful in providing some information and some guidance. Governor Hassan's a neighbor. She lives right down the road, and we're still very, very good friends today. And I know she's working hard down in Washington. But look, it's a small state. So even when you don't agree politically, you got to really break down those barriers of partisanship, reach across the aisle, and I think everybody wants the best. They really do. The people, whether you agree politically or not with folks in New Hampshire, people really want the best for that 1.3 million people that we represent, and that's it. It's all about outcomes. What are we doing for them?
All right, well, rainbows and unicorns. It sounds like a bumper sticker for Sununu 2018. We'll see. Governor, thanks for joining us this morning.
Anytime.
Congratulations on your first address.
Thank you, sir.